Thank you for this opportunity today. Thanks to the Humanities Center for not only this opportunity to present the research, but all that the Humanities Center does to promote humanities research around the campus, Wayne State faculty, in addition to promoting excellence with graduate student research.
Thank you.
Yes, and I was a recipient. I was fortunate enough to be a recipient of the WISE Fellowship back 2005, I think, and that greatly benefited me in finishing up my research. So I've always been have great respect for the center.
We appreciate that feedback. Thank you.
Let me explain a little bit about I'll have a bit of background about the nature of what it is that I'm studying, but let me explain a little bit about how I kind of came to this research, since the most dominant sort of question I usually get asked is, why do I study a very small group of Native Americans they're actually located in the northwestern part of the United States. Let me go to a map real quick to show you where we're basically talking about. Washington State here, the Makah Indian tribe lives here in Neah Bay, which is about the furthest northwest point of Washington State. Just as an FYI, if you are of any interest in the Twilight books or films, which has nothing to do with my research, that occurs right here in this part of Washington State. So actually, some of the Native American groups that are talking about, like the Lapuche Beach area, they talk about the Quileute tribe, which are actually relatives of the Makah. As part of my dissertation research, I actually kind of visited almost all of this coastal area here, which is some of the most pristine, beautiful kind of nature in that part of the country. But the reason I was interested in studying them was in part because of debate research I was doing. We had a topic that dealt with this particular tribe who had a request to start hunting whales. But I was also fascinated with the intersection of identity, how it affects law, policy making, and the rhetoric of sort of identity politics, how that influences our politics. So the Makah became, at this time, a perfect sort of case study for a host of reasons. First, they had to use their identity to justify their ability to have a hunt. We don't normally allow we don't allow any hunting of whales anymore since the 1970s. That's when we formally created a law against it. But there are exemptions for indigenous hunting of whales, and it depends a lot on your ability to identify if you have religious or cultural reasons to justify said hunt. The other interesting thing about the Makah is that they were one of few tribes in the United States that largely had their identity obliterated through federal and state policy, and that, in fact, only through a few elders did much memory of sort of their religious or cultural practices exist. And it wasn't until around 1970 that they had a major landslide in part of the area that I pointed out, that they uncovered like one of the greatest U.S. archaeological finds. And they discovered a long whaling tradition that they were completely unaware of, or at least had forgotten. So it's kind of interesting to study as a group because they rediscovered who they were and very much made a lot of political arguments about Native American sovereignty and a host of things related to that based off of the evidence that they found in this rediscovery of their identity. So they were a fascinating case study for a lot of things that I was interested in. They also have one of the best museums, Native American sort of cultural museums in the country. It's just way, way out in the country. But it's a fascinating museum that they house a lot of the archaeological things that they found. In the 1990s, the Makah really sort of rose to national, international fame and infamy because they announced to the world that they were going to resume the exercise of hunting whales in an effort to revitalize their community. And this came as quite a surprise because this particular tribe had not hunted gray whales in almost 70 years prior to the announcement. And an 1855 treaty between the federal government and the Makah Indians the Makah traded away their lands in Washington for a treaty guarantee to hunt whales and a certain take of salmon in the area. Now, they're the only indigenous group in the United States that has a treaty right to hunt whales. A lot of other treaties specify fishing rights. They're the only ones that were given a right to hunt whales. The hiatus in their hunting occurred because in 1920, it was believed that the gray whale, which is the primary whale that they hunt, was in danger of going extinct. And so they stopped hunting at that time. In 1994, the gray whale was removed from the endangered species list. It was at that time that the tribe announced that they wanted to resume the hunt. Now, one of the few places they actually got some support in their efforts to resume hunting was from the executive sort of administration. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration was legally required to defend the tribe and to petition the International Whaling Commission, which is the international body that oversees whaling activities. The NOAA became one of the sort of advocates for this particular tribe. And so the question often comes up, why do the Makah hunt? And the Makah believe that it is vital to their spirituality and their identity. There's two pictures here. One is in 2000, they actually had finally were able to have a hunt. They killed one whale. And so this is part of the group in a traditional canoe that they formed, the paddles, and these were the hunters that went out. This, on the other hand, is one of their key sort of spiritual symbols, which is Thunderbird. In Makah legend, and this is legend of many of the Native American groups in that part of Washington State, is that in a time of desperate need for those tribes, Thunderbird rose or attacked the water, basically grabbed a whale and brought it to the starving people, and they fed themselves. And so the whale is a sign of sort of the revitalization, the saving of the Makah people, and the hunting and eating of whale, even at a symbolic quantity, has always been rather important to sort of their religion and identity. Now, during the 70-year hiatus, a lot of things happened that made the Makah's request really complicated. First, in 1972, as I previewed, Congress passed the Marine Mammal Protection Act, which heavily regulated any activity that threatens marine mammals. Additionally, the international level, the IWC created a consensual agreement to have a global moratorium on whale hunting. Now, there is no legal international moratorium necessarily. It is very consensual. It's also one of the most complicated politics internationally because it's barely holding together. At the time the Makah made their request, Norway and Japan, particularly Norway, were constantly threatening to withdraw from the moratorium and begin commercial whaling again. Because they were quite unhappy with Western, well, not just Western nations, because they're also Western, but they're unhappy with the other members of the IWC dictating what they can and cannot do. So that sort of becomes a big part of the background of what's happening in Washington State, is that there's huge sort of international ramifications of this decision. So it's within this legal matrix that the Makah make their request. And it caused quite a bit of controversy. Within the United States, environmental groups, whale conservation groups, heavily protested the hunt. And it led to two circuit court decisions in the Ninth Court. Metcalf versus Daly, which occurred in 2000, and then the Anderson v. Evans decision, which occurred in 2002. And Anderson v. Evans is the case that I'm going to primarily talk about today. But in the Metcalf, the earlier decision, this was a strange decision. Rather than it be a decision about whether or not the Makah had a legal right to hunt whales, it had nothing to do with that. The nature of the case was whether the federal government filing their case for the Makah, whether they had violated the National Environmental Policy Act. Now, the NEPA is